Well, hello and thank you for joining me for another Alex on Tech and ITY video. I'm joined today by Amy Peck. She is the Senior Director of Enterprise Content at HTC Vive, one of the big VR firms out there at the moment, a pioneer in AR, VR, MR, and XR. We're going to learn a bit more about that in a sec. Amy runs her own company called Endeavor VR and is one of the keynote speakers at StartCon 2019. Welcome to the program.
Thanks so much, Alex.
Now, I've read your bio and what you're going to talk about is very exciting, but let's start a little bit, let's start at the beginning about your history in the world of tech and when you first came across the whole notion of VR. Was it sci-fi? Was it that VR game I remember from the 90s with wireframe dinosaurs that you had to shoot, or something else?
Well, it was a little bit like shooting dinosaurs. Instead, it was punching sharks. I'll tell you how I got there. So I used to produce television commercials a long time ago and post-production and visual effects. And a lot of the visual effects artists who were on Maya started building these 3D assets for this thing called Second Life.
Yes, and Second Life, it's still around today,
It's still around today, and it's actually still, there are people actually still making lots of really cool, objects and making money. But when I first saw it, I thought, this is bizarre. This is like Dungeons and Dragons digital edition. Wasn't for me. I didn't get it. So we cut to about 2013, and I joined a company called Leap Motion. Leap Motion is this tiny little peripheral. It looks like a little iPhone, plugs into your computer, and it's really amazing hand tracking.
I remember having one of those, and I just recently found it the other day. I sort of put it away. I had a Core 2 Duo Mac. Wasn't quite powerful enough, and it was a bit finicky, but do they still work?
Well, they do, and you have to update it. But what was amazing is that tech was so far ahead of its time.
Yes.
That was launched back in 2013, and just this year, actually, Oculus, who's our competitor, but we all play nicely in the sandbox right now, they've just announced hand tracking. So you think about how long it's taken some of the largest companies in the world to get to this level of
kind of catch up in a way, but probably in a more advanced way, in a more mature way.
It was great technology. It still is great technology. But what was funny is it coincided with the release of the first Oculus DK1, which DK stands for Developer Kit. And so our engineers in there, this is like super high tech. So I'm going to explain it slowly. They duct taped a Leap Motion to the front of an Oculus. And what was amazing is I could see my hands in this virtual environment, and there was this developer called Chaotic Moon, and they built an experience with the Leap Motion of the DK1 called Shark Punch, which is exactly how it sounds. But it's funny when I saw that, because my job was really to look at Leap Motion and figure out how enterprises could use it. As soon as I saw that in VR, I just said, this is it. This is what I want to do.
This is the future.
Absolutely.
So today, we don't just have virtual reality or VR, but we have AR, augmented reality, MR, mixed reality, XR, extended reality. What's the short version of what all of that means?
Well, it's interesting because we in the industry are trying to label all these sort of nuances of the realities, and XR has become kind of the umbrella term.
That means everything.
Right. So VR basically is when you're, completely immersed, you can't see your surroundings. AR are basically digital objects in your field of view. Things
like maps or names of people.
Or Pokemon Go.
Yeah. And mixed reality was what they tried to call the two of those, but now it's extended reality.
Well, and sort of, everything in between. So that's if, you can see yourself in a virtual environment, and it's part real life and part virtual. And it sort of runs the gamut. But I think the reality is that it's going to be what consumers call it. Once consumers really start to care about all of this tech, they'll let us know what they'd like it to be called. Yeah.
Now, we've seen things like augmented reality as far back that I can remember initially as like the Terminator movie. Schwarzenegger boots up and he can see text in his field of view. That was augmented reality. I've read about it in science fiction, that was written decades ago. But although we've had a lot of work over the past couple of decades, how much change have we really seen in the last year? And how do you think it will evolve over the next decade?
Well, it's interesting because, we in the industry are really, really impatient. Like, it's taking a long time for the headsets to evolve and the content to evolve. But really, if you look at the trajectory of other emerging technology, they all sort of follow this path, right? And we're right where we're supposed to be. It's just not happening as fast as we want it to. So in the last year, as I mentioned, there's hand tracking coming out, and also we at HTC have our own standalone called the Focus Plus, and we're going to be announcing hand tracking soon, early next year. So it's evolving. We still need to get the headsets a little bit smaller. We're really waiting. What we're really waiting for in the AR realm is the Magic Wayfarers, essentially.
Yeah. And who are the Magic Wayfarers?
Well, Apple has actually announced that in 2022 they're going to release a hybrid.
Well, I don't know if they announced it. That was leaked. I mean, I read reports that said 2020, and then Bloomberg comes out 2022, 2023.
Well,
and Tim Cook's been talking about it since.
I think all leaks might really just be a nice way of doing a press release.
Yeah.
But yeah, we were all really hoping 2020 because of course it makes sense.
Well,
glasses,
that's right. Next
2020.
Year. That's it.
But that's a little soon.
2020 vision.
And it's incredibly complex technology. So when you think about putting on a pair of glasses and being able to see everything that you normally look to your phone for, your mobile device, we have to know, what is the background you're against? Is it light? Is it dark? What is the context? Where are you? What do you want to see? So there's a lot of pieces to this technology. And as we know, Apple's not going to release a consumer product
until
it's ready.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen Google give up on the Daydream VR. I mean, that effectively they've shut that down. It's still going. I mean, we don't see Samsung talking about the Gear VR anymore. So, you know, sometimes we have these fits and starts. But yes, often it seems when Apple has done it, then it's right.
Yeah.
Yes, hopefully they'll bring it sooner to market than that, because otherwise it'll be a long 3 years.
Yeah, I mean, I was very disappointed that they didn't announce anything for this coming year, especially because their patents have indicated that it'll be powered by the phone, which solves one of the big problems, right? To have that much compute in a lightweight pair of glasses
with enough battery.
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
But the nice thing is Bose has come out with a beautiful pair of glasses. It's spatial audio, which is still augmented. It's just they don't have the visual component yet. But what it does show us is what the form factor is going to look like, really what spatial audio is. And I have to say, they're amazing. I wear them all the time. I take calls on them. I look like I'm completely insane because I'm talking to myself. I also talk with my hands, and everyone's looking for the Bluetooth devices in my ears, and there isn't one.
Yeah.
They're just like, okay, we're just going to let her walk down the street and keep talking.
50 years ago, they knew you were crazy when you were talking to yourself. And then in the 90s and the last, couple of decades, Bluetooth, they knew, he or she's on a call. But now, no, nothing in your ear.
Yeah.
But I've heard of AirPods Pro being spoken of as audio AR as well. So, I'm sure Apple's working on that from multiple angles. And it makes me wonder if HTC will have something similar in that time frame. Surely you're not just sticking with VR.
Well, I can't speak to that yet, but yes, I mean,
everyone's moving towards extended reality.
Yeah, I mean, HTC is has a tradition sort of steeped in mobile. They are one of the best at hardware manufacture, especially around mobile, and of course our VR headsets are I think I'm a little biased, but they really are. Especially the Vive Pro Eye, which was fairly recently released, which has built-in Tobii eye tracking. And
that's a massive improvement over what was just 3 or 4 years ago.
I mean, we had the Vive Pro, and then even the Vive, and I still have the original Vive in my living room, and that's a beautiful piece of hardware. So I expect some more great announcements coming up in the next few years from us.
Well, looking forward to that. Now, please tell us about your talk at StartCon, which, as I understand it, revolves around 5G, and that's obviously going to be an integral part of the way content is delivered to future headsets and glasses.
Yeah, so we talk a lot about, and I think this is even part of the description about what the talk is, and we spend a lot of time talking about what are the use cases for 5G, and certainly virtual content delivery is one of the big use cases, but what does it really look like? And so I think for enterprise, there's some obvious use cases. It's an extension of sort of the things we're doing now, but these are not just bigger pipes, right, to send bigger information through. The whole architecture is going to change, and the way we experience content is going to fundamentally change.
Well, if you want to hear more of Amy's talk, you're going to have to be at StartCon, and obviously you have a lot more to say, and that'll be very exciting. Now, one of the bios that I read talked about you having 2 boys, and so I'm wondering, are they now masters at VR and technology? What are their thoughts on the future of all the Rs that are coming? the new reality is competing for our attention with old-fashioned reality, or are you a low-tech parent, as I read about in Silicon Valley?
Well, yeah,
Or a bit of both.
I would somehow like to be a low-tech parent, but that just isn't the reality.
It's impossible, right?
No, I know. Well, it's interesting because my younger son is a gamer, and this was very telling in the early days because I would, he could have any headset he wanted. He could get, access to things that other kids couldn't.
Yeah.
And he was sort of, he was a little ambivalent.
Yeah.
So that told me a lot, and I think that's why I've been very focused on content, because that's really the piece that's missing. It doesn't matter, you have the greatest hardware in the world. If you don't have a reason to use it, it doesn't mean anything.
Cash is king, content is king. You can have Gear VR headsets and Daydreams, but unless you've got the killer content, it's all not going to be used. And so, are they both playing with the headsets now? And is more content, exciting content been arriving this last couple of years?
My older one, not as interested. My younger one did a 10-week course to learn how to build VR experiences.
Okay.
And I'm not going to say I influenced that, but I influenced that a little bit.
Yeah.
But he came out of it and he said, well, at least I know I don't want to build VR. But I learned how to code, and I really like Unity, and I like the idea of creating games. So it was worthwhile.
Sure.
So, but yeah, we'll play VR. We play Beat Saber, which everyone plays Beat Saber, and Super Hot, which are my two favorite games. And I think those are games that are great for non-gamers.
Yeah.
So we'll definitely get into some challenges together.
Well, I'm glad to hear it. And you've got the leaders of tomorrow helping you shape the future that they're going to be living in. Now, in the description for your talk about 5G tomorrow, you talk about how the matrix is sort of going to become real, and so or worse to that effect. You will find out when you're speaking. But how soon do you think that some sort of mind interface can be developed to quickly teach us new skills, languages, and more, as we saw in the Matrix, but without needing to drill a hole into our brains?
I always say that as soon as that's available, I'm going to be the first one to plug into the mainframe. Especially because I travel so much, it'd be great to be like, okay, now I speak Spanish, and now I speak German, now I speak Mandarin.
There's Google Translate that can do that for us today, but it's still not as good as...
I know, there's still something very cool about just being able to kind of, suddenly you're a local. It's hard to say. I mean, if you believe the singularity, it's 2045, 2049, that could be a little soon.
Yeah.
What's interesting is that, all of the enabling technologies around not just 5G, but this sort of race to singularity, the matrix, or whatever we want to call it.
And a direct mind technology interface.
Yeah. Those technologies are all moving very, very quickly, but they're somewhat reliant. Certain elements are reliant on each other. So it'll be interesting to see. It's, there's the sort of margin of error of trying to guess. I always say that, the beauty of predicting the future is that you don't have to be right. So let's just go with 2045. But I certainly think in our lifetime, because I did a hard stop at 39, and I don't want anyone to do any math out there by figuring out how old my kids are and how old I am. But I think in our lifetime, we're gonna see some dramatic changes in the way we do things. But I think it's positive.
Absolutely. And look, Yogi Berra is the guy who said that predictions are really hard, especially when they're about the future. He had a lot of
It's like, I can predict
sayings.
The past all day long.
That's it. And then one of the things I wanted to ask you before, but it was about the Gartner hype cycle, where they have the sort of at the very top of the cycle, everyone's really excited, but then you have the trough of disillusionment before we hit the plateau of productivity. So have we come out of that trough of disillusionment in the sense that you've seen competing VR headsets like the Gear and the Daydream that I've mentioned a couple of times now sort of disappearing, whilst you're seeing Oculus and HTC continuing to evolve with new versions? Or are we still, where are we on that hype cycle that you could tell us about?
Well, we actually, as VR, we got out of Gartner hype cycle jail a couple of years ago, and then AR was about a year later. I don't know that we're at this plateau of productivity. I think we're the evolution, like I said, is where it's supposed to be. When to have these ubiquitous devices, I think it is going to take someone like Apple and maybe some outliers. Who knows? Snap could come out. They've got a lot of experience with the glasses. They haven't been massively successful so far, but they are entertaining and they have a certain level of utility. So, as those evolve, I think we're going to get there. And, and it's like, I think when, that plateau is a part where it's like we know the technology is going to come. Like I think there was a concern that maybe VR would sort of go the way of the 8-track and go the way of the Beta and go Betamax and go the way of 3D televisions.
Yeah.
But I think we're secure that AR and VR and these new realities are here to stay.
Look, it's the decade of the 2020s where it's really finally going to come to life, and there was a famous saying that the future has already been invented, it just hasn't been widely distributed yet. And the other saying is that technology has really succeeded when it becomes invisible to our lives. When we all put on a pair of AR or XR glasses and walk down the street and like it's just a natural thing, well, then it succeeded. And presumably over the next decade, by 2029, we'll be there. Let's hope so anyway.
Oh yeah, no,
if not sooner.
I think so.
So I will not only be seeing your keynote speech at StartCon, but I noticed via your Twitter feed that you're giving a talk on extended reality on Monday, the 25th of November, between 6 and 7 p.m. at the Darling Square Library in Sydney. And the tickets are free. So I booked a ticket and I'll definitely be there. And I invite and encourage anybody to look for Amy Peck on Twitter and just even type in extended reality, Amy Peck, Sydney City. But tell us a little briefly what you're going to talk about at that.
Yeah, so I'm excited actually. So I was really excited to hear from the city of Sydney to say, we have this entrepreneur program and we'd love to have you come and speak at the library.
Did they know that you were coming because of StartCon?
I think so. Yeah, because of StartCon.
So they reached out and
and so it's going to be a little bit more focused on the realities, the AR, VR, MR, XR conundrum. And I'm, really going to talk much more specifically about, what I believe kind of each of the roles of that technology is and how people can leverage them today, how they'll be able to leverage them tomorrow.
Excellent. Now, as we get towards the end of the interview, I always like to change gears just a little bit and just simply ask you, what's the best piece of advice that you've ever received to help you get where you are today?
It sounds really, really pat, but in the early days, I was working in the music business. And I was working with an attorney, and so we were doing international licensing for music. And she just said, I love your passion for music. She said, I hope you never lose it. And whatever you do in your life, just love what you do. And since then, I've had this kind of complete circuitous journey to land me where I am today. But the through line really has been, I always do what I love. And so I wake up every day, I have a smile on my face, and I feel really, really fortunate to be able to do what I do. No
matter which realities that you are working in, you're loving reality.
Exactly. My reality is amazing.
So what is your final message to ITY viewers and readers, to StartCon delegates, to those coming to your talk on Monday, to your current and future customers and partners, and to everyone on planet Earth eagerly awaiting the future?
Well, my goal is to impart the same love of technology and this sort of optimistic vision of what technology can bring. Because I think there's a lot of fear about the future and the unknown, and we talk about automation and displacement, and I don't believe in any of that. I believe that we all have an opportunity to write the story of the future using technology, and I hope to inspire people to really embrace not only the future, but the future of technology.
Well, it sounds like I could have said those very words. I mean, I like to teach people that technology is our friend and not our Terminator-like enemy. And as long as, we all remember that science fiction, especially dystopian ones, can be a warning not for humanity not to go down that path and to strive for the best, then we can get there. We always have and we always will.
Absolutely, I agree.
Well, thank you so much, Amy, for your time. I really look forward to both of your talks. And anyone watching, you got to be there. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Alex.